I had been driving for hours. The storm had started as light snow, but by midnight it was nearly a blizzard. The wipers scraped back and forth, smeared more than they cleared. My headlights lit only a few feet of the empty highway ahead, swallowed by swirling white. The world outside my car felt endless, silent, and empty. My body ached from the drive. My eyes burned. My fingers trembled from gripping the wheel. I hadn't seen another car for what felt like an eternity. Every mile marker looked the same. I wasn't sure if I had passed the same one twice. I told myself to keep driving, to push through, but a sharp wave of fatigue hit me like a wall. My vision blurred. The lines on the road bent and twisted. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I thought I might fall asleep behind the wheel. That's when I saw it. Through the curtain of snow, a glow appeared ahead. A sign. A cheap neon vacancy sign, buzzing faintly in the storm. Below it, half hidden in darkness, was a squat, single-story motel. The kind you see off empty highways. A place that looks forgotten. Relief washed over me. Somewhere to rest. Somewhere warm. I pulled into the lot, tires crunching over frozen asphalt. The building was lined with dull teal doors, each numbered in flaking gold paint. The curtains drawn. No cars, no lights, no movement. The only light came from the office, a square of yellow spilling onto the snow. I stepped inside. The air was stale, carrying the faint odor of old smoke and something sweeter, like mildew. Behind the desk sat a man. His skin looked grey under the fluorescent bulb. His eyes were dark, sunk deep in his face. His smile was polite, but stiff, like it had been practiced too many times. "Long night?" he asked. I nodded, setting my wallet on the counter. His voice was calm, steady, almost too steady. "You'll be wanting a room then. Room 7 is open." He slid a brass key across the counter. It was heavy, cold. The number 7 was stamped into the metal. I glanced at the key, then back at him. "Do you need my ID or—" He shook his head. "No paperwork tonight. Just rest. You look tired." Something about the way he said it sent a chill down my spine, but I was too exhausted to argue. I muttered a quick thanks, pocketed the key, and stepped back into the storm. The walk to room 7 felt longer than it should. The wind cut through my jacket. The snow stung my face. I passed door after door, teal paint peeling, numbers rusted. The motel was silent. Completely silent. When I reached my door, the brass number hung crooked, nailed in at an angle. I slid the key into the lock. It turned with a heavy click, and the door swung open. The room was dim. A single lamp by the bed flickered weakly. The carpet was worn thin, stained dark in patches. The wallpaper peeled in yellow curls. The air smelled faintly of rot, mixed with something metallic. Still, it was warm. A bed was a bed. I dropped my bag on the floor, shut the door, and sat down. The mattress sagged beneath me. Springs groaned. I rubbed my eyes, trying to convince myself it was fine, temporary. One night. I just needed sleep. But as I sat there, I realized something. The room was too quiet. No hum of a heater, no pipes creaking, no wind pressing against the windows, only silence. And then I noticed the clock. A cheap digital clock sat on the nightstand, its red numbers glowing faintly. It read 3:07. I thought nothing of it until 10 minutes later, When I looked again, still 307. I tapped the buttons. Nothing changed. I unplugged it. The numbers stayed on, glowing softly in the dark. A shiver ran through me. I told myself I was imagining things, that fatigue was playing tricks on me. I slipped off my shoes, lay back on the bed, and shut my eyes. That was when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, heavy. Above me. I froze. My eyes opened. My breath caught in my throat. There was no second floor. The footsteps moved from one end of the ceiling to the other, dragging, scraping. Then silence. I sat up, staring at the ceiling. My pulse hammered in my chest. I waited. Long enough to think I had dreamed it. Long enough for the silence to feel thick. Then the sound came again. Louder this time. I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside into the storm. Snow whipped against me as I craned my neck upward. The roof stretched empty above. No stairs, no access, no sign of movement. But the footsteps continued, faint now, muffled by distance. I stumbled back into the room, heart racing, breath clouding in the cold air. I shut the door, turned the lock, and pressed my back against it. The silence returned, heavy, suffocating. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, that I was safe inside, that the footsteps were only in my head. But deep down, I knew. Something was wrong with room 7. I tried to calm myself. I told myself to lie back down, close my eyes, and wait for sleep. But every sound made me tense. The creak of the mattress when I shifted, the faint rattle of the window. Even my own heartbeat seemed too loud. Then came the knock. 3 slow raps against the door. I froze. The sound was deliberate. Not the wind, not an accident. Someone was there. I waited, holding my breath. Another knock followed. Louder. Heavier. My first instinct was to call the front desk. But when I reached for the room phone, I saw the cord had been cut clean through. The frayed wires hung loose, dead. The knocking stopped. Silence pressed in again. I forced myself to the door, standing on the tips of my toes to peek through the peephole. The storm outside was a blur, snow whipping under the flickering light. No one stood there, no footprints, nothing. My hand hovered over the lock. Then, slowly, the brass knob began to turn. I stumbled back. My chest tightened. I wanted to run, but where? The only exit was that door. The knob twisted halfway, then stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the knocking. I stared at it, waiting, my pulse pounding in my ears. After what felt like forever, the knob turned back into place. The lock clicked softly, like someone on the other side had decided to leave it closed. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bed with my back against the wall, watching the door. Hours passed, though the clock stayed at 3:07, its red numbers glowing like eyes in the dark. When morning came, pale light spilled through the thin curtains. The storm had slowed. I threw on my jacket, grabbed my keys, and bolted from the room. Outside, the parking lot looked different. My car was gone. I stopped dead. Snow stretched across the asphalt, untouched except for my footprints leading from the office to room 7. I ran to the front desk, yanking the door open. The man behind the counter sat in the same position as before, hands folded neatly, smile fixed on his face. "Sleep well?" he asked. I slammed my palms on the counter. Where's my car? Did someone tow it? He tilted his head, like the question confused him. You didn't drive here. I stared at him, trying to process his words. I did. I parked right outside. I checked in less than 8 hours ago. The man shook his head slowly. You walked here, in the storm, no car. My stomach sank. My chest burned. I wanted to argue, to demand answers, but his eyes never left mine. They were dark, steady, unblinking. Something in them made me take a step back. You should get back to your room, he said softly. It's safer there. I turned and left without another word. Room 7 looked the same as when I had left. My bag sat untouched by the bed. The clock still glowed, 3:07. I searched every corner. I tore open the drawers, ripped the covers off the bed, pulled the curtains wide. Nothing. No clues. No explanation. Finally, I sat down and tried to think. The front desk man was lying. My car had to be somewhere. Maybe he had it towed. Maybe he was messing with me. But the snow outside told a different story. No tire tracks, no marks, only mine. Hours passed. My stomach growled, but I didn't dare leave. The motel felt wrong, like the whole building was breathing, waiting. When the sun set, I realized something else. The storm outside had stopped, but the world beyond the motel looked wrong. The highway was gone. I pressed my face to the glass. Where there should have been road and open land, there was only more motel. Rows of teal doors stretched out in both directions, repeating endlessly. The office sign glowed in the distance, and behind it, more doors, more rooms. The motel wasn't surrounded by land. The motel was surrounded by itself. I staggered back from the window, panic crawling up my throat. My first thought was to leave, to run. But where would I go? Then came the footsteps again. Not above me this time, inside the room. I spun around. The bathroom door stood ajar, dark inside, silent. I forced myself to move toward it. My hand shook as I pushed the door open. The bathroom was small, lined with cracked tiles, mirror fogged at the edges. The air smelled damp, like wet stone. I flicked on the light. The mirror didn't show me. It showed the room, the bed, the clock, the door, but not me. I wasn't there. I staggered back, heart racing, throat dry. I rubbed my eyes, blinked, looked again. Same reflection. The room without me. Then slowly, something else appeared. A figure, standing in the corner of the reflection. It was tall, too tall. Its body stretched thin, limbs too long, head tilted. Its skin looked pale, stretched tight. Its eyes were black pits, endless and hollow. But when I turned around, the bathroom was empty. I looked back at the mirror. The figure was closer. The figure in the mirror leaned forward. Its face stretched toward me, its mouth wide but silent. My breath hitched. My hands shook against the sink. I forced myself to look away, staring at the empty tiles behind me. Nothing there. Only the damp smell. Only the buzzing light overhead. When I looked back at the mirror, the figure stood inches from the glass. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. My heels slammed against the door, and the bathroom light flickered once, twice, then went out. Darkness. I gasped, fumbled for the switch. Nothing. The room stayed black. My pulse thundered. Then, faintly, I saw movement. Not in the bathroom, in the mirror. The glow of the clock from the bedroom spilled faint red light across the glass. In that dim reflection, the figure stepped out of the bathroom door and into the room. I heard nothing. No footsteps. But in the mirror, it moved smoothly, like it was gliding. It stopped at the foot of the bed, its head tilting side to side as if listening. Then it turned and looked straight at me. The glass spider-webbed with cracks. I threw myself out of the bathroom, slamming the door shut behind me. My chest burned with each breath. I pressed my back to the wood, expecting it to push open, expecting to hear scraping claws. But the door stayed shut. Silence. I counted out the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 10. A full minute. Nothing. When I finally worked up the courage, I grabbed my bag and bolted for the front door. The hallway outside was empty. The teal door stretched left and right, repeating down the endless building. I sprinted toward the office, my shoes thudding against the stained carpet. The neon sign glowed ahead. Office. The letters buzzed faintly. I pushed the door open, but the man behind the desk wasn't there. The chair was empty. On the counter sat an old keyring, dozens of brass keys, each with a peeling tag. Room numbers carved into the metal. Some looked familiar. 7, 8, 9, but others were wrong. Room 307, room 712, room 999. Numbers that didn't exist. I rifled through them, hands trembling. The metal was ice cold. Then I noticed the wall behind the counter. A bulletin board covered with old Polaroid photographs. Each one showed the front of a room door. Different doors, different angles. But all of them shared one thing. A single figure standing in front of the door. Tall, thin, limbs too long, face blurred by the camera. In every photo, the figure faced the lens. And in the newest photo, tacked in the center of the board, was room 7. My room. The figure stood in front of it. Its hand was on the knob. I dropped the keys and staggered back. My legs felt heavy, weak. I turned to leave, but the office door slammed shut on its own. The lights flickered. When they came back on, the man was standing behind the counter again. Same smile, same folded hands. "You should go back to your room," he said, his voice calm. "No," I snapped. "I'm leaving." His smile widened slightly. "There's nowhere to go." I felt anger surge up through the fear. What is this place? What's happening to me? His eyes narrowed, but he didn't lose the smile. "You checked in. You stay until checkout." I shook my head. "I never wanted to be here." "You chose the road," he said softly. "And the road always leads here." For some, I backed toward the door, hand fumbling for the knob. His eyes followed me, cold and steady. When I yanked the door open, the parking lot wasn't outside. Another hallway stretched into darkness. Rows of teal doors, same stained carpet. I slammed it shut, turned, and the office was gone. I stood in the same hallway now, doors stretching endlessly on both sides. The sign above me no longer said office, it said exit. And beneath the glow of the sign, one door stood open. Room 7. I felt something behind me, a breath, cold air brushing my neck. I ran, straight into the open door, back into my room. The clock still glowed 3:07, but the bed was different. Someone was lying in it. I crept closer, my stomach twisting. It was me. I lay there, eyes closed, chest rising slowly, asleep. The bathroom door creaked open. The figure stepped out. The figure stepped out of the bathroom, its movement stiff, unnatural. Limbs too long, angles too sharp. It stood by the bed, looking down at the version of me that slept peacefully. I pressed against the wall, trying to sink into it, willing myself to disappear. My breath shook. My pulse hammered so loud, I thought it would wake the other me. The figure turned its head toward me. Its face was blank, pale like wax. No eyes, no mouth, only smooth flesh stretched too tight. Yet I felt it staring. The lights flickered again. When they steadied, the sleeping me was gone. The bed was empty. Only the figure remained. I bolted, out the door, into the hallway. My footsteps echoed, swallowed by the endless steel corridor. Doors lined the walls like rows of teeth, each one identical, each one humming faintly, as if something alive pressed against the other side. I sprinted until my legs gave out, collapsing against a door marked 12. My throat burned with each breath. My skin felt damp with sweat, though the air was cold. I pulled myself up, opened the door, and stumbled inside. The room wasn't a room at all. Rows of televisions stacked floor to ceiling. Each screen flickered with static, except one. On that screen, I saw myself, running down the hallway, right now. I froze. The me on the screen stopped running, turned, and looked straight at the camera. Straight at me. Then the static swallowed the screen. I staggered back. The televisions around me clicked on, one by one, until hundreds of screens glowed. Each showed a different version of the motel, different angles, different doors. In one, I saw the office with the smiling man. In another, the cracked bathroom mirror. In another, the figure standing in the parking lot, staring up at the night sky. And in every single screen, something moved just at the edge of the frame. Long arms, a pale blur, watching. The sound hit then, a low hum. The static from the screens deepened into a rumble, like dozens of voices whispering over one another. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the sound wasn't outside. It was inside my head. Words forming, jumbled, broken. Stay, stay, stay. I ran for the door. It slammed shut in my face. The televisions all flickered at once. Every screen showed me, standing in that exact spot, hands on the door, face pale and terrified. And behind me, in the screens, the figure stood. I spun around. Nothing there. The static cut to black. Every screen went dead. The hum stopped. When I turned back to the door, it was gone. Only a blank wall remained. I wasn't in the motel anymore. I stood in a parking lot, the air heavy and damp. The neon sign above buzzed faintly, but the words were wrong. Letters jumbled, rearranged into nonsense. The cars were gone. The road was gone. Beyond the cracked asphalt stretched nothing but fog, and in the fog, shadows shifted. Shapes half-formed. People maybe, or things trying to be people. I stepped back, my heels scraping the pavement. One of the shapes broke from the mist, tall and thin, moving toward me. Then another, and another. Dozens. I turned toward the motel entrance. The lobby glowed faint orange, warm, inviting. I ran for it. Inside, the man at the desk was waiting. His smile never faltered. "You see now," he said, "why guests don't leave." I slammed my fists on the counter. "What do you want from me?" He tilted his head. "Want?" His voice stretched the word until it felt like it would tear. "We don't want. We keep." Behind him, the bulletin board of Polaroids had changed. Now every photo showed me, standing at different doors, standing in the hall, sitting on the bed. Even this moment, fists on the counter, rage in my eyes. Dozens of versions of me, frozen forever. The man leaned closer. "Checkout is not for you." I backed away, but the lobby melted around me. The walls stretched, the carpet ran like water, the ceiling dissolved into black. I was in the hallway again, doors on both sides. Only this time, every door was open, and in each one I saw myself. Some sat at the edge of beds, staring blankly. Some pressed their faces to windows. Some paced the floor, muttering. One version of me crawled across the carpet, skin pale, eyes hollow. They all turned to look at me at once. The air grew heavy. My lungs struggled to pull in air. The figure stepped into the hall. It towered over the other versions of me, its face still blank, but its presence crushing. It raised a hand, long fingers pointing toward me. The lights went out. When they came back, I was alone. The hall stretched into endless black. The clock in my room still glowed 3:07. Always 3:07. I sank to my knees, my mind unraveling. There was no exit, no escape, only repetition, only the road that led here. And somewhere in the dark, the figure waited. I don't know how long I knelt in that hallway. Time meant nothing. The air was still, yet my chest heaved like I was drowning. Then, a sound. A door creaking open somewhere ahead. I forced myself to stand, legs trembling. The hallway lights flickered, buzzing faintly. I walked, one slow step at a time, until I found it. Room 6. The door stood open, the number bent and scratched. The same room I had checked into. I pushed inside. The bed was made. The lamp glowed with warm light. The clock on the nightstand blinked 3:07. Always 3:07. On the bed sat a notebook. Old leather, cracked edges. I picked it up and flipped through. Every page filled with handwriting. Dozens of entries. Dozens of names. Dates going back decades. Each entry ended the same way. I checked in. I couldn't leave. The last entry chilled my blood. It was mine, written in my own hand. I checked in. I couldn't leave. The pen rested beside the notebook, fresh ink still wet. I dropped it. The room groaned, walls shifting like lungs inhaling. The mirror over the dresser reflected me. Except it wasn't me. It was one of the versions I had seen in the hallway. Pale skin, hollow eyes, movements jagged like broken glass. It smiled. My reflection smiled. I stumbled back, slamming into the wall. The reflection kept moving forward, pressing against the glass, as if the mirror was nothing but a thin veil. The surface rippled. Then it stepped through. I faced myself. Same face, same body, but wrong. Its eyes were black voids. Its grin stretched too wide. It whispered, voice like mine but twisted. "You belong here." I grabbed the lamp and hurled it. The bulb shattered, sparks flaring, but the thing didn't move. It only kept smiling. I bolted for the door. The hallway was gone. Only blackness, a void swallowing everything, stretching forever. And in that void, I heard hundreds of voices, my own voice, all saying the same words. I checked in. I couldn't leave. I ran anyway. My feet hit nothing but still carried me forward. The motel floated in the dark, its neon sign buzzing faintly above. The wrong letters glitched, rearranged, but I knew what it meant now. Not motel, not vacancy. It said, stay, always stay. I turned back. The reflection followed, no longer walking, but gliding. The faceless figure stood behind it, towering, arms stretched wide like it was welcoming me home. I screamed until my throat tore. The void swallowed my voice. Then silence. I opened my eyes. I was back on Route 6, driving, headlights cutting through the dark. The motel sign flickered in the distance. For a second, I thought it had been a dream, a hallucination. But when I looked at the passenger seat, the notebook lay there. Old leather, cracked edges. I picked it up. The pages were blank now, except the first one, scrawled in my handwriting. I checked in. I couldn't leave. My stomach dropped. The headlights caught the sign. The neon buzzed. Vacancy, vacancy, vacancy. And before I could even think, my hands turned the wheel, back toward the parking lot, back toward the motel. The clock on the nightstand glowed 3:07, always 3:07.